Any thoughts about that or questions? Yeah.
I love saying reality.
Yeah.
One of these is going to be the last one.
The breath, yeah.
And I love to really drop into them.
Yeah.
And just kind of be there.
Yeah.
Almost like scare yourself.
Yeah, right, yeah.
But just literally go right to that place.
Yeah.
And just sit there and know that one of these slide does not go on eternally.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it helps me realize this space.
Yeah. Yeah, and any technique you can use to bring yourself in, like, oh, this is it. Yeah, great. Anything else? Yeah.
So that, for me, was way more successful because I found noises I was
Yeah, just be with it. Yeah. And also the first time you were kind of like, oh, what is this practice? Now you know it a little bit more. And as you practice, this is a wonderful practice for like if you're waiting at a hospital or something and you have like 10 minutes, do it for a couple minutes and just like, oh, let me stay with 1 or 2 breaths. And again, it's that rep training. So you are training the mind to be able to relinquish, the refinement of relinquishment. It is that training, and so it's really helpful. Yeah, anything else? Yeah.
I was thinking, to stillness, anywhere, like makeup,
Yeah.
except my house.
Yeah, right, yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Any suggestions?
Well,
Or does that become my practice?
yeah, that's become Scotty Knuckles, unfortunately. So I spent many years studying what's called Lojong practices, which is how to do radical, loving practices in very difficult positions. For example, one of my main teachers is a man who lives in my town named Garchen Rinpoche. And he spent 20 years being tortured in prison. And that's where he learned Lojong. And he had he was in a Chinese prison, a Tibetan man. He had a chance to escape. And he didn't. And we asked him why he didn't escape. He said, because at that point, I was in such a wonderful place, and it was such a great place for practice. I couldn't have thought of being in a better position. And I'm like just trying to forgive people in traffic, It's like, so I was like, wow, it just felt like impossible. But it is possible to, move into more difficult places. But the reason I brought that up is because when I was studying Lojong, my teacher would always say, don't attempt this at home. Because that's where it's the hardest to work. He said, do this in the grocery store, do this in the office, but allow yourself to be an absolute failure once you get home. Like just, because you can feel like, especially if you really decide to devote yourself to spiritual practice, and then you're just in the same old bickering that you've always been in. You're like, oh my God, am I like just a failure in life, And it's just like, let yourself fail at home.
It's a distraction.
It's just, it's too hot. The fire's too hot, my teacher used to always say. You're going to be screwed. There's no way around it.
You say, though, that if you can find a corner of your
yeah, of course, yeah.
spot,
Mm-hmm.
and always associate that spot with exactly that kind of piece,
Yeah.
you have a better chance
Yeah, and so.
of doing that. It isn't the entire house.
Yeah.
It could be a room, it could be a corner.
Yeah.
And something to focus.
Yeah, and so now what Harry's bringing up is how to like develop a home practice. So when I say forget about the home, what I mean is forget about trying to do any of these practices in the middle of an argument with your husband or when your kids are driving you crazy. That's what I mean. But now you can absolutely practice in your home. And a couple quick points, and we'll take a break in a second. I just want to bring up 2 things before we break. One is how to develop it. Like if you decide, I want to learn this skill of meditation in a more serious way. Unfortunately, the key is daily practice. I suggest a minimum of 6 days a week. So you take 1 day off. And then, so I used to teach music, and I would tell my students, please practice every day. And of course, after a lesson, they're all excited. I'm totally going to practice every day. And then the next week is like, how did it go? They were like, well, I practiced 2 hours right before the lesson. But that was it, you know? So I'm always thinking, how can I get people to practice, you know? So I was like, forget an hour a day. Let's do 30 minutes a day. Totally, I'm going to do 30 minutes a day, you know? Same thing. I practiced an hour before the lesson. But I didn't get to it this week. And I heard it from enough people that I knew it wasn't just the circumstances of that week. You see what I mean? And then, so then I was like, all right, practice 5 minutes a day. And nobody did it. Right? And then, so then something interesting happened. I said, okay, here's what I want you to do. I want you to set a timer, and I want you to just play your instrument for 3 minutes a day, minimum. You can do more if you want, but a minimum 3 minutes a day. And suddenly people started to do it. And here's what I think. 5 minutes a day we think of as technically a chunk of time. Like it's a chunk, you know? We have like 5 minutes. Do you have 5 minutes, you know? And most of us don't have 5 minutes, or we don't have 5 minutes to sit still. But 3 minutes you can't get away from. Like everybody's got 3 minutes. You see, it's like this time thing. So at the beginning of practice, you can't do a lot. I mean, to be honest, you can't do a lot with 3 minutes, but what you can do is develop a habit. And that's at the beginning stages, that's the most important thing. So once I moved to 3 minutes a day, both in meditation students and music students, I noticed people do it. Because here's what you do. You lay down, at the end of the day, you're exhausted. You're so excited for bed. And then you're like, oh no, I forgot to meditate. If it was 5 minutes, you'd say, I'll do it tomorrow. But 3 minutes, you literally get up, sit on your pillow, and sit for 3 minutes. And you'll sleep better anyway, right? So you'll have made up that 3 minutes. And I've done that. When I'm really busy and I forget to meditate, I'm like, oh my God, I'll sit for 3 minutes right now. And if you want to sit for 5 after the 3 minutes, fine, but that's it. So I would recommend to you, if you're like, I would like to give this a try, I recommend this. I recommend commit to 3 minutes a day, 6 days a week for 40 days. And then reevaluate and see where you're at. Yeah, Cecily.
Yeah, I was thinking about that. I was thinking that's how we set the habit.
Yeah, totally.
We begin with 3 minutes a day, but it's so much more than the 3 minutes. It's setting the habit.
Exactly.
And another thing I make really good use of for myself when I'm more frantic than I want to be is I use Post-its and stick them on the kitchen cabinet and
Yeah.
they say, stop.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah.
And so I'm walking through the kitchen on my way to put something away or something, and I see the Post-it thing that says stop, and I stop and I stand.
Yeah, great.
And it's amazing. That's so easy. And you don't have to stand for long, but what it does is kind of set the habit
Yeah.
of coming back to yourself in such an easy way.
Yeah, great, thank you. And yeah, like what Harry was talking about too, find a place in your home that, I have one student who sits in his toilet, and that's where he does his practice, because it's the one place nobody will bother him. And he puts the toilet seat down. I have another friend who does that in the office. He does his meditation after he gets to the office, and he does it in the bathroom. And again, just figure out what works for you. I know somebody else that does it in their car in the parking lot of their office building. So you just find what works for you. But
Or the shower.
yeah, yeah.
There's something about water.
Totally. Yeah. Yeah, warm shower. Yeah, just. And here's the thing: make it your own and let it be playful a little bit, like explore.